Brahmagyana Timurandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So the last time we saw some video excerpts, and if you remember, there was this episode of Skip Atwater, that young intelligence army deputy who came to Robert Monroe with a secret mission to find out about remote viewing, and then he had this experience. So we'll start from there, how remote viewing was used by the CIA, and I find it personally a very interesting history, also because this method is very good in controlling the mind, which is exactly what we're trying to do. I find it a very powerful method. So remote viewing. This term, remote viewing, is a new term, which originated in this endeavor by the CIA to create a means for psychic spying, a technique which was the central focus of the US Army Stargate project. We spoke about it a little bit last time, that in Russia some attempts were made during the Cold War to use psychic spying as a defense means, or war means, and then the US started to research, and this is how the whole thing started. And that Stanford Research Institute was involved in that because they had some psychics which were one of the first people who formalized remote viewing as a technique. So the definition by this SRI is that remote viewing is the acquisition and description by mental means of information blocked from ordinary perception by distance or shielding, and generally believed to be secure against such access. So that was a secret progress report. And controlled remote viewing, which was also called coordinate remote viewing, because they used the coordinates of different locations for that. It was developed in the 1970s and the 80s as part of the US government's classified research into psychic espionage, primarily under the CIA and later the Defense Intelligence Agency. A program known as Stargate Project aimed to train individuals to access non-local information using structured protocols. So the first people, there were some very famous people, were Ingo Swann. He was an artist from New York and known as a psychic. Then Joe McMonigal, he later also worked for the Monroe Institute. He was a former US Army intelligence officer, one of the first one. He was called the first remote viewer. He has done hundreds of sessions, and they found him because he was in the Vietnam War, and somehow he always escaped any dangerous situation. Whenever there was some really dangerous situation, crash or whatever, he always escaped. And they were wondering how he knew that exactly then something is happening and he's not there. So then he was systematically trained for that. And David Morehouse is another one. He also created his own school later. And it's a structured methodology to enhance and systemize the natural intuitive abilities of remote viewers. So this is not something which only people with psychic abilities can do, but actually everybody can learn it, and that's fascinating, and that's why it can be really used to train the mind, because it's very systematic. So you follow a protocol. You get just a code, and from that you systematically go into the various sensations which you receive. It's like a target line, a signal line, and from that you develop, we'll look at it later, but you get impressions, visual, audible, tactile, any impressions that you receive through that line, you have to write it down, and then later you combine it. It's like layers of perception which you receive. So, each remote viewing experiment is conducted under a set of protocols or rules that separate remote viewing out from the more classical psychic techniques and act as a method to access the accuracy of the intuitive data. So of course, you always later get the feedback. So you get an unknown target and you start, according to the protocol, you go through various steps, and at the end you receive the feedback of what the actual target is, and you compare it. In that way one can train it. That was later declassified as a means for psychic spying, because what was found that these people who did that psychic spying, for example, Joe McMonigal, he went to war scenes, and he found victims who were kidnapped in very dangerous situations. But these people, when they had the experience of remote viewing, they felt so much harmony and love and unity that they were not really interested in aggressive spying or actually in warfare, because it's the opposite. You go there, you go in a state of love and unity, and this just doesn't fit. So therefore, the whole program was ultimately not conducted further. And there's a very interesting project. I'll just play the first few minutes. It's the project Deep Quest, or Psychic Sea Hunt, that was conducted in 1977, and there's a documentary about it, where a group of Ingo Swan and a lady, Hella Hamid, they were researching in the ocean a submarine which had, they didn't know if there's anything, but they assumed that there must be in the California area, in the ocean, there must be some remnants of that submarine, but they had no clue where it was, and it was, for many years they tried to find it, but they could not locate it. So then this psychic sea hunt was conducted, and it's very fascinating how they ultimately really found it. So I'll just play the first few minutes to get you an idea, and I'll share the link in our WhatsApp group.
Is there something in the human mind that can gather information our normal senses do not know? Can a psychic, guided only by paranormal powers, reach out with some portion of himself to describe an unknown wreck on the ocean floor? In prehistoric times, Santa Catalina was once part of Southern California. Free from pollution, the island is an ideal location for oceanographers. It is the home of the Institute for Marine and Coastal Studies, an internationally renowned center for the scientific study of the seas. It was here that an unusual team of psychics and scientists, known as the Mobius Group, came to demonstrate a never-before-tested psychic ability. Using an extraordinary new research submarine, the team would attempt to prove that man's psychic capabilities could indeed reveal the ocean's secrets. As real as a person is the research submarine, Taurus 1. This 34-foot-long electric-powered $3 million submersible is perfectly suited for the experiment Schwartz has in mind. With her large viewport, more than 1,000-foot depth limit, and the ability to retrieve objects from the sea floor, Taurus 1 offers the Mobius Group a real chance to prove their psychic claims. For months, Taurus 1 has dived off Catalina, carrying out a wide range of marine biological and geophysical undersea experiments. Now she will face a task of a different order: to prove that the psychic predictions about an undersea site are true. Al Whitcomb, Taurus 1's pilot, will play an important role if Deep Quest is to succeed.
Al, we believe that somewhere in these waters we're going to make a psychic hit. About how far out can we go and get a reasonable day's dive?
Well, our first limitation would be the diving depth capability of the submersible, which is 300 meters or 1,000 feet. After that, considering our tow out and our tow in, I'd say let's stay within the 2-mile range, and it gives us a good working day.
So it's somewhere over in here would be ideal if we go out that far.
This appeared at first hand to many of our boys as just one of those mad ventures. I did persuade the boys that, you know, it was a viable thing, it could be fun, and we were going to give these guys all the encouragement we could.
For all his enthusiasm, Whitcomb knows from past dives that the odds are against success.
We'd spent about 20 diving days in the area. We'd covered a lot of ground. We hadn't seen anything other than just a few scraps on the bottom. It was flat and just a few rocks, a few bits of seaweed, and certainly a multitude of fish, but otherwise nothing.
The Mobius team turns to psychic Ingo Swan.
Well, it takes a lot of guts to accept a challenge like this.
The task Schwartz assigns the psychics: use your powers to locate an archaeological site of your choosing in the waters off Catalina. Identify specific objects within the site, draw pictures of what the objects look like, explain their history.
This isn't an easy thing to do. At first, you have to work up to it, you know, and sort of separate yourself from the physical environment and become, as it is, psychic for that particular task, and then do it.
So we stop here. I'm sharing the link so you can see the whole thing. There are also longer documentaries, 2 parts. The whole story is shown. Quite interesting. And here I have selected a very short clip, which I have also shared with Mamaji, which is a school where Major Ed Dames trains army people. I think these were people who were connected with the army, but maybe not soldiers. That was in the 1980s, in the second wave, where they trained the technique, the protocol of controlled remote viewing. That's different than extended remote viewing, which is more intuitive, where you don't follow the strict protocol. We don't write so much, but this is very, very structured, and you'll see why he likes it so much.
Out. You'll be dragged kicking and screaming, the egoic mind, but this will work very fast. Why? Because it's a natural process. We know that it'll work. Very, very natural. It's hard for you to understand it, but the process is natural, and it'll pop right in. There's 2 things I learned from this business. One thing I learned really fast was you can never look at the world the same way again after you learn remote viewing, because you know that you can know anything. Work, yeah, but you can know anything accurately. And number 2, how totally fallible a thinking process is in our lives. Countless sessions that I have done where I know what this is and come up with something completely different that's truth instead of what I thought. Because there's no thinking involved. It's just, hey, take it or leave it, like it or not. This is what the answer to that question is. Whether it's a murder mystery or whatever. You may not like the answer, but it's going to be right. And your fears aren't going to be in the way, and your biases aren't going to be in the way, and your preconceived notions about what you think the world is like isn't going to be in the way. Just the facts. That's why I like this process.
So I found it very interesting with the first clip also, that the scientists are going under the water, because it's actually one element that is totally unexplored like the way the earth is explored, the air and everything. And so I don't know how many people are familiar with dolphins and with whales, talking about psychic, because these are the big, they're not even fishes, they are mammals, right?
Mammals.
And dolphins are totally psychic. So there are many healing techniques, actually, and swimming that people do with the dolphins these days.
I use one dolphin technique, especially.
In Israel, they do it in many other places. So these dolphins have a very high frequencies, which are so beneficial for human body that they're immediately reprogramming and healing themselves. And also amongst the whales, there are so many different, let's say, parivars, families of whales, and they have their own languages also, and these languages are just programmed like on the psychic ability to share. Obviously they make some noises, but for us this is impossible to understand, but they're very healing frequencies.
We'll just look at animal telepathy in a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
So but now we are in the remote viewing, still the remote viewing.
Short comment.
Yeah.
I had the nice, very sweet experience of swimming with dolphins in Eilat in the Red Sea. Yeah,
Dolphins
I mean,
are
it felt wonderful. I don't know about the whole theory.
They are healing.
behind it.
That is a fact. They're very healing, and there are healing techniques with dolphins. Yeah, dolphins are very special.
It takes two to tango.
I just want to say a few more things regarding remote viewing. What is interesting for us, I find, is that you have to completely send your ego away. As soon as you start with the ego, you get it wrong. You have to. It is a very intuitive process, and when ego gets in the way, then we have these analytic overlays, which are called AOLs. Then we have analytic overlays. They're called AOL. And if something like that comes to your mind, like if you have a clear picture of anything, then it's clearly an AOL. So if your mind tells you, oh, they must be like this, or they must be like that, all these things are AOL. And by this method, you can really analyze your mind, and you are very clear, this is my ego, this is, where, from which angle it comes. And you can train yourself to only use this sense, and to be very systematic and strict and stick to one thing. It's an excellent mental training. Especially if we want to control our minds and thoughts here and there, and it's fun also. So
it's like superimposition. Our mind or intellect superimposes our own program.
Yes,
something
exactly. That's exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Which happens all the time.
Yes, it happens all the time. Yeah, and to be aware of that. I mean, it creates awareness, which is the most important thing. We want to be aware. So if you start thinking in that way, okay, now here again, this is, and you can also become aware of thoughts, of your own thoughts, of others' thoughts. You can distinguish. This is not my thought. This is coming from outside. This is the whole thing. This whole course is about awareness. This is how we started. Awareness of our own thoughts, and we're closing the circle today, going back to the importance of thoughts and the techniques connected with that. But it's all about that, creating awareness. And now, I'm asking you, who is the first remote viewer in history? Who do we know in our... Take a microphone.
The first what?
The first, yes, close. Yeah. Sanjaya. Yeah. Exactly. So Sanjaya is our first remote viewer. So what happened was, before the war of Kurukshetra, Vyasa asked King Dhritarashtra if he wants to have divya drishti, the divine vision, to see what's going on in the war. But Dhritarashtra declined because he didn't want to see the destruction of his dynasty. But he wanted to know he still wanted to know what's going on. So then Vyasa gave Sanjaya the ability to see everything which was going on the battlefield simultaneously. So then when he got that divya drishti, then even though he was situated in Hastinapur, he was able to tell everything which was going on in Kurukshetra. So he was a real remote viewer. And another example we just heard on Sunday, if you remember, Kaushik, that from the Mahabharata, this story about the person who, that yogi who meditated in the forest, and then a bird there was a bird dropping, and he glanced at the bird, and the bird died just by his glance because he had all this yogic power now. And then he went to that housewife to ask for bhikshu, and the woman didn't come out immediately. She came out later, and then she said, I'm not the bird. And he was shocked. How could she know? So she also had that ability. So that means that was something which was actually known she got it by her chastity. That's all she had, just by serving, by her fulfilling her duty as a housewife. The dharma of a housewife is to serve her husband. So Mahabharata is illustrating that, and that's why she had this ability to see what happened in the forest, which she couldn't have otherwise. So that's another example, and there are more, of course. So remote viewing is very similar to telepathy. The term telepathy was coined by Frederick William Henry Myers in 1882 already as a communication of impressions from one mind to another, independently of the recognized channels of sense. So we can have experiences of accessing non-local information which is not within our physical proximity, and that without the use of technology. So the mind functions like a radio station. It can receive signals and it can transmit signals. And it depends on the frequency which you tune into. So you can choose which frequency you want to receive, and then that's what you receive. I think everybody has this experience. We just perceive or we see what we want to see, really. And interestingly, this method of communication was quite common throughout history in various ancient cultures. In Australian Aborigines, American Indians, and tribes in Africa used to communicate from mind to mind before the invention of telephones. And nowadays, this ability has been lost because we became so dependent on electronic means.
On the black box.
Yes, and even it will become even worse with AI. It will become so bad that we are becoming really dull. But that was common, and we have many reports from in travel journals where amazing stories happen. That somebody was just sitting on the road and waiting for somebody in the middle of nowhere, and then one of these ethnologists came and asked him why he's sitting there, and he said, I'm waiting for my friend, he must come any moment. And the person said, it's impossible, how can anybody find you here? There's no sign, it's in the middle of nowhere. And sure enough, the friend came. And many such stories, many. So that was a regular means to communicate, involving a general well-being and emotional bonding within the family unit. So these were common things, like what do you want to eat today? Just communicate, or dinner is ready, and then a person is coming. And the smoke signals, for example, which have become known or famous, of American Indians sending smoke signals. So smoke signals were sent not directly to communicate the message, because it would be too gross, but to communicate that a message is going to be sent. So somebody had a message for a friend in 2 villages down the valley. So he communicated that with the smoke, and then that person knew, okay, a message is coming for me. So he sat down and he made himself ready to receive, and then they communicated, mind to mind. So that is something which we have the ability to do. It's not something supernatural. It's actually a natural ability of the mind. It's just we just don't use it. It's like a muscle which is not trained. And it can be helpful. It's a good means to really use our brain to its full capacity for which it is made. Yes?
So would you explain this with the chitta connection, or how would you explain it on the mind, just on the practical?
Yeah, it's exactly, because it's non-local. Chitta is not. It's not confined. Consciousness is not confined to the brain. It's a field, morphogenetic field, you can call it. So it's the resonance principle. You emit something, and it's being received like waves, or like, as I said, the radio receiver and transmitter. You're transmitting, and you receive it. So the chitta it's non-local. It's not restricted to your skull.
Yeah, kind of an expansion of my own awareness, in the sense of that my chitta is not restricted to my own field or memories or knowledge anymore.
Yeah, you can.
But it's connected, let's say, or kind of with the universal one, or.
Yeah, you can also call it universal mind. It's as soon as you think of like a person, that person, the message gets to that person. I mean, I think almost everybody had the experience of, you get a phone call, or you think of somebody, and then the person is calling, or you get a phone call and oh, this is this person. So there's an immediate transmittance. It's like immediate. So there's no time, there's no space. It's like it's really one field. Or we all know have this experience of somebody staring at you. Rupert Sheldrake made many experiences like that, with people. You're sitting somewhere in an audience, and you start staring at somebody, and sure enough, the person, they will turn, they will notice somebody's staring at me. So how do we feel it? It's not through our physical eyes, but we can still perceive it. But because we're usually not tuned into it, we don't pay attention to it. But if people are very closely connected, like mother and son, or we also heard once Babaji tell the story of a guru and disciple. So the guru had a toothache, bad toothache, and the disciple could actually feel it, and he tried to give him some remedy. So if there's a very close heart-to-heart connection, then no matter what the distance is, the communication is there. And Anna has a lot of experience with that. Right? Yeah. Okay, so telepathy is a direct transmission of thoughts, feelings, or information between minds without using any known sensory channels or physical interaction. It is often considered a form of extrasensory perception, ESP, or psychic communication. There are various types of telepathy. There's mental telepathy, which is direct mind-to-mind thought transmission. Then there's emotional telepathy, sharing or sensing emotions without verbal or physical cues. Like, somebody feels very sad, there's something, you just know that, whatever, somebody's going through a hard time. Intuitive telepathy, a sudden knowing of another person's thought or intention. That happens a lot also with parents. Like, there are stories where a child had an accident, and the parents, they knew something's happening, and they immediately, they called, they tried to phone, and then they heard there was an accident. And that mothers, exactly, it's usually the mother, because she has a close connection. And dream telepathy also. So now there's a very interesting podcast series which is now in the top range of all podcasts. It became very famous last year, actually. The telepathy tapes. It's a groundbreaking podcast series on telepathy with non-verbal autistic children. Traveling with neuroscientist Dr. Diane Powell, the host, which is Kai Dickens, invites her audience to contemplate the world through the eyes of those who speak without words and witness mind-boggling telepathy tests that challenge traditional views on communication and consciousness. So these are children who cannot talk. They are called non-speakers, and they call us the neurotypicals. And previously, because they were not able to express themselves, they were put into lunatic asylums or locked up in homes, and they had no means to express their thoughts, even though most of them were highly evolved and actually very intelligent. So only around 2 decades ago, through I would say iPads, with the technology, which they were able to press buttons on the iPads to indicate to speak. They have speakers, basically, devices with which they learned to type. But even that was difficult for most of them because they don't feel their body. They don't even know that they have a body. They have no sensation. So that's why they have such difficulty in life, because they don't, where's my hand? So somebody has to hold their hand, and there was great progress, but then because there was touching involved, and then there was a scandal that one of these children was touched in an inappropriate way, and so there was all kind of weird stuff going on, and suppression, actually, because doctors and the whole education system could not believe that it's possible that these children actually are fully 100% telepathic. They have it, and this is what Dr. Powell and Kai Dickens show in 10 episodes. And first, I found so many different excerpts, and I found them so fascinating. I wanted to play them all. Then I thought it would take too long. I'm just sharing here the trailer, because now they're going to produce a movie from all that, because there has been such an interest worldwide since the telepathy tapes have been released. People, they're flooding with messages, mothers about their children, teachers about, this is happening in my school, this is amazing, I couldn't believe it, but now I understand. And even the teachers now, they can communicate with the children just mind to mind. And they know so it's a fascinating world. And what they found out was, and this is even more mind-boggling, that these children have a place, a non-physical place, which they call the hill, where they meet. So, and first, when Dr. Powell first heard about the hill, she thought, okay, one child was telling her that he always goes to the hill to meet friends and to play, and she was wondering, what is this hill? And then she went to another part of the world, and that child also told something about the hill, and that child had no communication, because they don't communicate other than with their close parents or whoever takes care of them, teachers. Caretakers, exactly. So then she found out, wow, there's something about this hill. And then from a few more sources, she heard it, and even a teacher said that she can access that hill. And they communicate at that place together, and the messages which they bring out are profound spiritual messages, really profound. It's absolutely fascinating. I'll share some in the WhatsApp group also. What these people say, these children say, when they are able to communicate through speakers, through speakers. And my assumption why they are so capable, and often they also have they have abilities which are extremely rare. How do you call these? They are like expert in one field. They can calculate hundreds of years which date of the week it is in so many years, and like amazing abilities. So my assumption is, let me just finish that. My assumption is that because they are not identifying with their bodies, because they don't feel their bodies, that's why their mind is more alert, more active. It's like a blind person has the abilities, they can feel with their hands, they see with their hands. So these children, because they don't have this kind of strong identification and ahankara, that's why they have this ability, which we don't have because we are so much outwardly turned. Yes.
We recently met a devotee friend from Brazil who is somewhat autistic, and is the most amazing Jyotish I've ever come across, just by birth of date and place of birth. He can figure out so many things about you and your life and your health and everything, and even the future, that I've never seen anything like it. So it corroborates what you're saying.
Yeah.
Can I share?
Yes.
So you mentioned about these children. I also had a encounter with quite a few of them, and it's totally amazing.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to mention about healing techniques, for instance. So I was born in Croatia to a grandmother who was a healer. Later on, I traveled all over the world, and I lived in the different places in the world actively. So to whichever place I came, and I encountered the healers there, my own shiatsu sensei from Japan, or even everything comes basically to a single thing, that it's just everything is the same. It doesn't matter where it comes from. So whatever my grandmother told me in my childhood, I witnessed later on, whether it was with the sensei, whether it was in Australia, whether it was somewhere else. Like, basically, it's like they all share this, like, from many different parts of the world. And certainly they don't communicate verbally with each other. But whatever my grandmother told me, Sensei could confirm, or someone else could confirm, it's the same thing, underlying.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll watch now the trailer of this documentary.
My son said to me, I can hear thoughts. And I said, impossible. And he said to me, you don't get the kind of gifts that I have if you lie.
Let's please multiply two numbers and see if he gets it.
Okay, what is it?
9, 0, 0.
Unbelievable.
1.
Maybe shuffle again, Dr. Powell. Oh.
Play. 2.
So he got the plus, too.
I was wondering, because I was looking at the 2 the whole time, and I saw his hand going somewhere else.
What is this phenomena happening? Why are his mind and my mind completely connected?
I knew that a lot of people would think, boy, Diane's gone off the deep end.
But that's the risk any scientist takes when they challenge the current paradigm.
Joining us today to shed some light, Dr. Diane Powell.
I'm working with children who have been reported by a parent to be able to read their mind.
The data was so compelling and accurate that I had to follow it, even though I knew I was risking my scientific reputation.
I started testing them, and I found that they were exceedingly accurate.
What is the next number?
3.
After the medical board took my license away, I had to prove my sanity. And once I did, I said, I'm going to prove that ESP is real.
Dr. Tarrant, he's done these QEEG scans to see what's going on.
The biggest overall finding is really this increase of activation across all the brain waves. If there was no change, I would definitely be skeptical.
If you can show a consistent pattern, particularly from kid to kid, that's how science changes. You cannot fake this.
We want answers like, where does it come from?
I want to know how and what am I supposed to do?
We can't all be crazy.
We are far more powerful than we can imagine, and the implications are huge for humanity and the planet.
Yeah, that's her license was taken. Dr. Powell's license was taken when she started getting into that and making it public. Then that because it was not the norm, but now she has it back. Now she has so much support. But yeah, this is quite amazing, quite revolutionary. And one of the people who always supported that and who has done a lot of research much earlier already is Rupert Sheldrake, whom we have seen in the first session of this seminar, who was challenging the scientific paradigm, if you remember that. So here we have now animal telepathy. He's presenting that. And we're just starting when he directly goes into that scene with a parrot and his or its owner. So that's a girl. She loves that parrot, and you can see they have a very close relationship. So the parrot can read her mind. So what they do is they have envelopes with different symbols, and they have it in the basement, and she didn't know what it was. The envelopes were mixed up, and the parrot was in another room. Then she opens the envelope and looks at the card in it, and then the parrot speaks, and he says exactly what the girl sees, and he speaks it in a voice. If you hear it, you will at first think the girl is speaking, but it's a parrot. So I'm just saying that so you understand it, because it's very, it's difficult to understand it if you don't know what's going on. So you hear the parrot speaking, and he's seeing what the girl is seeing.
I've been working for several years to train my parrots to understand and use spoken language appropriately. Due to their ability to communicate through meaningful speech, I discovered by accident that they seemed able to read thoughts. They would often describe vocally what I was looking at, reading, or even thinking that they could not have known of any other way. I had never done anything to try to train or reward them for this. They just seemed to do it as part of their expression of our bond. This was happening so frequently that Rupert Sheldrake and I decided to perform these controlled experiments to study it.
So the two cameras are side by side, and that card showed they were synchronized. Amy's now taking one camera downstairs.
I want you to tell me.
That's the parrot talking. From now on, all the words you hear are the parrot.
You can put the take a flower. See you later. I'm gonna go pick some flower. Yeah, your mother ain't gonna pick some flower. Yeah, man, go pick some flowers. We gotta go to camp with some flowers on out. I gotta put some pick some flower. And some pick a flower. Go here, put here, get a flower. Look up pick a flower. Yeah. My pretty, come on. What you doing up
Answering machine noise.
So cool. And put your head up.
This is obscure. It's only, we'll have a close-up and you'll see what's going on.
Careful. Don't put your head out.
There's a guy's head out of the cab window. And that's what Amy was actually looking at when the parrot said, you put your head out.
Oh, make your hug. Make him your hug. Your hug.
Oh, 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 tickle, tickle, tickle. Oh, 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 I got you. Oh, oh.
Okay, we'll, yeah, just to give a little impression about that. Okay, so this completes our journey into different psychic abilities of the mind, and now we go back to the influence of thoughts as an introduction to CQM. And we have a few more minutes, so I'm not explaining the whole theory about it. In quantum methods, particles are non-local, either so a thought or consciousness can exhibit non-local properties, and these thoughts are in our energy field. So everything has an energy field, and every thought which we send to a person or which we have ourselves creates a change in that field. And any experience which caused any negative experience which caused resistance causes something like an energetic knot in that field. So the field is something like, this is the field, and any situation, we can call it samskara. So now we're doing a little exercise to find these energetic knots. So as I said, any experience where we felt resistance, anything which was involved in that experience is triggering this samskara. So we may have any problem, can be physical, can be mental, which can be related with an experience we had at some point where any factor which was involved in that experience gets triggered. For example, we have an argument, very unpleasant, and I feel some resistance. You know, that's naturally, it's a negative experience. I have resistance, and you wear a red chador. So now, whenever in the future I see a red chador, this becomes triggered, and then I have a response which is a negative response, which can cause various problems. So the problem can be on various levels. And to find out these problems, that's the goal of CQM, and then to to correct these energetic disturbances, make them straight. And for that, to correct them or to straighten them out, we have a simple command, a simple mental command, which is correct. So anything can be changed by the thought correct. We did this exercise, if you remember, I don't know if you did remember, but we can do it now also, where, shall we just do this now? Let us first do this one, and if you still have time, I can show you how this works with the energy field. Malika was there. Remember Malika? We did the kinesiology test, and then with the thought correct, her arm became strong, even though she was out of her balance. Okay, so let's do that now. You can all close your eyes, sit back and relax. And you recall a distressing or painful experience that you strongly resisted. It may have stirred emotions like anger, fear, hatred, or guilt. Try to remember such a situation. And now feel. How does it feel? Do you notice anything in your body, how your body responds? Do you notice any sensation of heat or pressure? Do you notice any changes in your facial expressions? And now think at all the details of this event. Who was present when that happened, or what was present? And what was said or what was not said? And watch your heart connections with the persons who were involved in that experience. And now if you have singled out persons or specific objects that you can remember that were part of that experience, now we send the mental command correct to all the persons and the factors involved in this experience. So you revisit all thoughts, emotions and sensations that were involved in creating the samskara of resistance, and you correct them. And notice what your body is doing. Notice any sensation in your body, an emotion, any difference. Heat, tension. And when you have done that, then you can open your eyes. You can slightly move your body. And then you think again about that experience, exactly the way you have thought about it before. And now compare what your body does. Do you notice any difference in how your body reacts? Any difference in emotions? Specifically in bodily reactions. would like to invite you, if anybody has an experience, which did you notice any difference when you first think about the experience, how your body reacts, and then you go over the situation and you correct all the relations, person to person, from you to the person, from you to the object. It's all, you cannot correct between other persons, but you can always correct from you to somebody else. And then that takes out the stress. It's like the experience when any of these factors comes in your way, like you suddenly see this red shudder, and then you react. It's like this sanskaras starts to pulse, and you react in a way which you don't want to, but you're forced to. You don't understand why you react that way, but you react that way without being conscious that it gets triggered because of that. And when you make the corrections, you clear the field, energy can flow again, and then you don't have that reaction anymore, because all the connections which were part of that experience are now clarified. And so in that way you can even cure bodily problems, diseases, all kind of. It's quite amazing what can be done just with this command correct. Does anybody want to share anything? Yeah, Didi.
Yes, I just wanted to ask. Earlier we saw about this telepathic communication.
Yeah.
So I have this very much with my sister.
Aha.
And many times we are thinking the same, we have the same plans,
Yeah.
at the same time we send the same message. But my question to you is, for important matters, how can we rely on that? Because sometimes it may also be wrong that I may think, oh, maybe she wants to just come to India next month.
Yeah.
But maybe she didn't. So it's just my imagination. How can we distinguish between telepathy and our imagination?
Yeah, that's
because now in this case it's not an important thing, but sometimes things can be very important. So how can we distinguish between these two?
It's very, very difficult unless you really have the experience. It's like a few things are so intense that there's no question, you just know it. But because we're not trained in it, then it's very hard to distinguish. Like with the analytic overlay, it's very hard to distinguish. Is it now my analytic mind thinking, or is it a signal line which is coming? And I think the only way is by training. But in these cases, we have to verify it. We cannot rely on, oh, I got the feeling she wants to come, and now let me book the taxi. We can't do that. I mean, these children, for them, that's different, because they are 100%, that's how they communicate. But since it's not our modus operandi, we can't rely on it. It's not possible.
So my next question could be, now if I speak from my masculine brain, my rational brain, a person could say, well, what is the need for it? What is the use for it? I mean, what is the use of telepathy? Why should we not just ask to a person, do you want to come? Or
first of all, it's not obvious. It's for people like in Africa. For these people, they had no other means. If then it becomes really vital. If you have no other means, and that's the whole point, because they had no other means. That's what they did, and this just shows that the mind is capable of doing it. I'm not saying everybody has to learn it. It's just to see what we are capable of doing. But now, because we have all these comfortable means of communication, which are where we can be 100% sure, then we don't rely on that, which is not secure. That's why also ultimately the CIA didn't continue with the psychic spying, because it's very difficult to verify, and if they have 10 of them, everybody would have slight difference. So it's not meant for 100% pratyaksha. It's just to see what can be done, you know, and how also it's a good way to train the mind to become more, to train awareness, and that's the whole thing, really, awareness, that we become aware. Even with the CQM, it's very practical, you know. When we go into resistance, before a situation comes where we get into resistance, we should not even do it. Then we don't have the problem. You know, last year I told the story when I was riding my bike here. I didn't notice an electric pole, and I crashed against it, just down the road, and I fell down from my bike. And immediately, I started. I corrected everything. I corrected myself to the floor, the bike, this, and I didn't have any bruise. So because so it's a very practical means which you can use, and it creates awareness. If we have any difficulty with somebody, then we should be aware that this can create problems on various levels, which later on we may not be aware of, that this is the cause, this is the origin of it. So if we are more conscious how we communicate, and we don't have such resistance or such tensions or whatever, clashes, we won't have any such energetic knots.
Can I comment on Jess?
I have couple of comments. One is that my experience in Ilas Maran, there's always a problem, or whether it's what you call my analytic mind, my material imagination, or whether what I'm getting is actually
same.
So it's a matter of awareness. If I get out of my mind and actually can feel, it feels like in the heart, then I know, then a good feeling coming. And if I cannot get out of my mental speculation, nothing happens.
Yeah.
And the other comment is that I saw a documentary of a South African woman who could communicate telepathically with caged animals. And it was amazing because she didn't know anything about that jaguar or whatever, but that jaguar told her things that she couldn't possibly know about what happened to the jaguar. And it solved the problem with that animal. So animal telepathy is quite... It's quite very much there.
Yeah, because they also don't have any other means of, so exactly. And what you said about the Lilas Maram is also the experience. You know, if you do it, if you practice it, then at some point you feel, okay, now this is the analytic mind, and this is coming from the heart, and this is remote viewing also. You practice and you know that this is an AOL. I have to write it here on the right side, put it out. And this is the direct heart connection. And usually, if brain and heart are in line, which we also practice in the beginning, this heart-mind alignment, then it's much easier than if you just operate from the brain, basically.
Okay. I just have a comment on Jess' question on practicality. What is the use of it? So here we have Swami Vishwananda with I don't know how many people around. It's a whole pilgrimage. It's a lot of them.
Thousands.
Not everybody can go personally to talk to him. But all these devotees, they have their personal questions. So I was not aware of this until a few days ago, because if I have a question, I will go and ask him. I have apparently this privilege to come close. But there are a lot of devotees there who are initiated, and they never in their life talk to him in person. And yet, they have this communication going on. So I asked them, but how do you communicate? And they just said, inside. And he's just giving all kinds of instructions. So if I would just think about it, like how we think in material world, like how we think these people are totally crazy, let's put them in a mental hospital. Like Because this is how they receive the instructions for their life. And this is how their lives are actually happening and getting better and better and better. So it's totally intuitive communication, telepathic communication. And I was, to be honest, surprised myself like a few days ago, because I said, but doesn't it bother you that you cannot confirm this with him in person? And I was told, no, because he is with us continuously. Right? Amazing. And then when you mentioned about bicycle also, I had an accident in Amsterdam quite a long time ago. I had the whole unrolling picture coming of the accident on the tram tracks, like it was raining. But I doubted it at that point, although I had many things like this before. But there was a friend who was going, oh, come on. I got off the bike and I said, can we go in another street? But my friend was going, no, let's go this way. It's a shortcut. It was my birthday also. I thought, okay, I'm just imagining. I got on the bike, got into the street, and I got myself into an accident that happened just a few minutes before that in front of my eyes, the whole unrolling picture. It was on my 30th birthday. Later they brought me in a hospital. They had to operate. And when they took the stitches out, this nurse said, oh, do you want to know how many stitches you have? Just as fun. And she counted. She said, oh, you have 30 stitches. And she saw my face froze, and she looked at the paper, and she goes, oh God, you just turned 30. I'm sorry. It's not that I'm being superstitious, but maybe this is to tell you something. So before that, I just followed this intuition, but because of this friend, I didn't want to think that I'm crazy. I just ignored it, and I ended up in the situation.
Yeah, this happens, yeah. Okay, well, I think we'll have one last comment.
The resistance, I didn't resonate quite with that word resistance, but I did. So maybe you could expand on that. The painful experience made sense, and then an additional question in terms of what was feeling. I did feel some constriction in the heart area. As far as in revisiting that. And then responding to that. And my next question is, how often does this need to be repeated, and what is like the feedback to know that perhaps the correction has occurred?
Well, how often it has to repeat it. Once it's corrected, it doesn't have to repeat it at all. The difficulty is to find really exactly that thing which needs to be corrected. And if you don't get that same again, if you don't have the same reaction again of resistance, you're free from that. It's specifically resistance. It's difficult for me to explain why is it resistant, because the founder of this system has, this is one of the pillars of this system, that whenever there's resistance, and it can be even an experience which does not seem to be so terribly painful or stressful, but the resistance part is very important.
What does it mean, the resistance?
Resist means you feel, you say this is not okay. This is a resistance. Anything which happens to you where you say this is not okay.
Like a doubt.
Yeah, I don't know any better word, but imagine that. This is not okay. Anything which you experience, as soon as you have this thought, it doesn't have to be a thought, it can be a feeling, but as soon as this comes in your mind, in your energy field, there is an energetic knot is created. Just by that.
It's not right.
That's enough. And that causes from very subtle to very gross. I mean, with this, people who cannot walk anymore, even physically, just by correcting different bodily parts, I mean, even though the thought may not have been involved, that this is not okay, but but that also, the corrections can be also done on that level. So it's on many different levels that same command, correct, can just clear the field. But to be aware of that thought that this is not okay, it's very helpful, because then we are able to see things differently, and we may feel like, okay, this is happening, and I don't know why it's happening to me. But instead of having this resistance, this is not okay, we could think like, I don't understand why it's happening now, but maybe there's a good reason for it, so I'll just try to deal with it. We can rethink it, and then it will not create that problem.
We have a saying in English, if you're not sure about something, you want to do something but you're not sure, when in doubt, don't.
Uh-huh.
This is maybe helpful to you? We have a saying in English, right? When in doubt, don't. If you feel it's not right, don't, stop.
Yes, thank you. I was just trying to rectify this idea of having a painful experience with this idea of resistance, because some painful experiences, I'm not necessarily conscious of a feeling of resistance. So that's where I was asking for the clarification. That this is not okay. The feeling of being wronged or something like this that was helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, painful experiences, of course, also they have to be resolved, and there are different ways to do that. Not necessarily with that correct command, but just by going through it and there are many ways to do it, either analytically or just changing the experience. All that can be done. But CQM specifically is based on this one thing, to correct anything against which we have had previous resistance in the form of, this is not okay. This is a simple way to put it. Did I answer all the? Okay, so thank you very much, all of you, for coming today, and see you next time.